Yo, what's up, people? And welcome to a pretty long tutorial, I'm guessing. Or it's not gonna be a short one at least. Because today I'm gonna be breaking down how I composited this shot in After Effects. So, like, it's gone through a lot of changes, and this was like one of the first acceptable versions I had of it. It's not perfect, but it was good enough for me at least. But like some stuff was not really great. Like these things here, there's an overlay I rendered afterwards. We had these like red, weird noise thingies going on. And this was way too saturated. There was not enough detail. The proportions were wrong on stuff. And it was not great, but yeah, this was the version 2. I changed up the grading a little bit. I added some more detail, tried fixing the grass a little bit, adding some particles. But it was looking better, but it was still not amazing. You can see how the lightning here was not... Oh, did I even have lightning? Yeah, I had it here, but it was like not even blowing up a little bit, so it was not amazing either. I think I moved the lighting here to the end, and the proportions were still wrong. I moved up another notch here, and I actually remodeled some of these elements here. I made these a lot bigger and like modeled them properly and added like detail and little hinges and whatnot. And we have the version 5, and this I actually added some more camera movement to it, kind of a slow pan up like this. But I wasn't the biggest fan. I still thought it looked kind of CG-ish. It looked alright, it looked good, but it didn't look photorealistic, which was like the whole kind of goal. I fixed some of the lightning glow issues, so they're a lot brighter now. It was still not great, but we have version 5, or no, version 6, and this was basically the same. This was basically the same thing, but I changed the camera movement to be a slow panning or slow dolly thing. And then here is where I made the biggest kind of change, and I changed my camera position to be a little more realistic, among a lot of other things. I changed some of these because like my main problem was that the scale wasn't really lining up. So if we look at these cones here, yeah, these cones, 1, 2, 3, I changed the scale of them because like apparently these were this like almost the size of a human, and these are gigantic. Like this is the size of a human. So I changed all the proportions and changed the camera angle, making sure everything was a lot more like realistic in terms of size and proportions. Proportions is a big key element. I also changed the color grading, making sure I looked at a lot of reference, making sure that I would match the color and like brightness of certain things, because here was all too saturated. It was very bright in certain areas, so this kind of neutralized everything a little bit. And the rain was too intense. I had this rain overlay. I'll talk about how I did that. But it wasn't like tracking to the ground, it was just kind of floating there. So the version 8, which is the final one, I cleaned up the rain a little bit and made the whole ground a little more realistic. But this is the version I'm at right now. It's still not perfect. It could be better. It can always be better, but this is at a point where I'm happy with it, and I think it fits the mood of the shots. So, let's talk about how I kind of went about making this. So, a lot of it is made in comp. So like this is the render I got from Blender, and I can just brighten this up a little bit so you can see what we're actually like getting. But it's actually crazy how much you can change your render in post. Like just changing this brightness, there's a lot of information here. But to start off, a big part of this and like making it work is looking at reference. Like make that it's very important. It was very hard to make this scene because there's actually not a lot of reference wet racetracks from this kind of angle. It's usually very like high mounted, kind of looking down on cars. And it's also never like this is more of an abandoned one. Like it's not an active race going on in this scene. So not all the lights are like not on, or they are on, but I wanted this to be a lot more moody than usual like race scenes are, because they're all blasted with lights, making sure you can see everything. But this was the render I got from Blender. I can play it up real quick. Maybe I cannot, because this is a very heavy scene. But I have some glitchy artifacts here on the ground, which actually ended up working to my advantage, as it kind of looks like rain droplets and things like that when you add all the processing and stuff like that. So I didn't really worry about this. I think I rendered this at a 500 samples, 1920, 817 resolution. Alright, so let's just go here layer by layer. So we have the first, which is an adjustment layer, and the opacity is 100%. And I have a Gaussian blur and some brightness. So I'm essentially just duplicating the layer, brightening it up, and adding some blur to it, and then just kind of tracking it there. It's not, I don't think, is it even tracked? No, it's not even tracked. It's literally just, it's there because the perspective change is not noticeable enough. So this is kind of supposed to emulate that kind of mistiness that you get when rain collides with the ground. And especially if you're looking at a low angle like this, you're gonna be seeing this kind of, the water droplets laying over each other kind of brightens the image a little bit. Then I have this additional little thing here right at the edge to kind of fill that back. So that's going to be a little bit brighter than the rest of this. So those are these few adjustment layers here. Then we have a duplication, and I'm rendering in EXR. So if you don't know what that is, I think I've made a video on it, how to use it and everything. So if you use an extractor and this OpenColor.io plugin, you can basically, if you render out of Blender in OpenEXR multilayer, you can have access to all these layers. You get all these renders inside of this one file. So the one I ended up using the most was the mist pass, and I also used the emit pass. So that's, the emission pass is only the emission lights. So that was very handy, adding this glow like that. And for some reason it looks a little weird, it has this black edge around it. I'm not really sure why. I think it's the Gaussian blur kind of messing it up a little bit. It is fine though, because it's not noticeable at the end. But I think fastbox blur is better. I could be talking shit, but I gotta try it. Maybe not. Oh. Nope. Okay. Well, that didn't really work. The preferred way of doing it is using a glow. I don't know why I did not do that. But yeah, I used a Gaussian blur, and I think that is actually because I only wanted the blurriness. I didn't want the like bright spot to get duplicated, if that makes sense. So that's our mission. I just wanted to brighten up these hot spots a little bit, because that's what would happen. Everything is not like we have some lens imperfections, and one of those is the bleeding of light. So these files, I've already uploaded those on the Patreon. It's in one of those like useful image textures or like overlays or something like that. And it's these dripping rain bits. And I just manually like positioned animation those to kind of look like they're in a scene. And they don't look great here in the composition without all the color grading and stuff, but they are there and they're adding to the scene. Just some dripping rain. And then we have our mist solid here. And this one is, if I crank it up, I'm just using a Lumimat, and that's looking at the layer above it, which is a mist pass. And I've used the levels to make it only like appear on the white here. And then I'm using the Luma feature here to make the further away, make it darker. So it kind of dims out some of those lights. It's very subtle, but it's there. It's there adding to the effect. And then we have this interesting layer, which is the rain. So if we look at this, we have two fractal noise effects here. And the set mat, what is that even doing? I don't think it's doing much at all, so I'm just going to delete that. So I'm using a levels effect on this fractal thing. I think it's animated. No, okay. Or it's not animating the fractal noise, but it's changing position to kind of adjust for the position change in the camera. And I'm using the same Luma mat. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically looking at the layer above it and saying if something is black, change the opacity of the current layer to 0. And if something is white, make it visible. So that's making it so this rain effect is only appearing in those certain shapes. So if we look at this rain ground, at it just like that. Let's see. So we just crank it up a little bit and remove the Luma. This is what we have essentially. It's this noise, very small fractal noise, and I then corner pin it so it's gonna match kind of the perspective. And then I use levels to remove a lot of the blacks so we only get the white, brightness and contrast to just bring out those highlights, roughen edges to kind of soften these edges, then a directional blur so it kind of looks like splashes instead of being these like obviously flat things. So then yeah, using the Luma mat, we only keep the spots where this layer is bright, and I think it was at like 25 or 30 or something like that. I'm actually not sure. Might just do some of that redoing. Control Z. Oh, 45. Generous. Okay. So, glow. And this layer does glow. Who could have guessed? I'm using the deep glow add-on here. And I don't think you necessarily need it. You can create a similar effect just using the regular glow. I think the deep glow is just a little more accurate. But yeah, this Gaussian blur is really messing up. I'm realizing that was not the smartest move. Don't do that. But yeah, just adding some glow because light interacts with volume by scattering in it. So this kind of simulates that volume effect, because in the actual render I had no volumetrics whatsoever. So I'm having to kind of think a little extra about what can fake the volumetrics. So now we have one of the most important layers, and it's the blur layer. So I'm just going to enable that, and look at that. We have instant volumetrics, and it's such a simple like trick. So a lot of people doing mist in post, they just choose a solid color and then go with that. But a smarter way to do it is using a blur, Gaussian blur, simple Gaussian blur. So let's break down what's going on here. So I'm just going to remove the Luma matte. So we got a layer with Gaussian blur on it. And what that does is just blurs everything out. Like, you've used the Gaussian blur, so like that. We get a nice blurry, even, almost even kind of color going. And if we just lower the opacity here, we can kind of see that it's misting. It's making it look misty and like wet in the air. What is that called now again? I don't really know, but that's the effect we're going for. So by then having this mist pass layer, which, yeah, just mist pass, we can control using the Luma matte where this blur is supposed to go. So if we can tint this whatever color we want. We can make the glow red or blue or whatever, but I'm just keeping this pretty neutral. And I can then change this levels effect to control where I want my thing to go, like in the 3D space, which is quite neat. So yeah, I just tweaked it to be like this, kind of generally everywhere, but it's going to be stronger towards the end because that's where it's more, we're reviewing more of the mist. So then we have this effect, which is rain. Oh, and this is a subtle one. And I might actually just go to the top here and apply the color grade. This is a simple volumetric color with some adjustments. I'm probably going to go through it later. But we can see some of these a little more clear now. So this one is just a simple CC rain effect. And if I just remove the Luma matte for a second and remove the screen, this is how it looks. It's just very small raindrops, and how many are there? 200,000 of them that I have in the scene here, and they're quite small, and this is supposed to be just a general overlay, and they're going to be more towards the back. So I do the same thing using a mist, and you know the deal. Just Luma matte it, make it 50%. And did I use the levels? Oh right, wait. And then setting it to screen, so it removes all the black. Okay, so this mist too, I don't think it's supposed to be enabled. No, that's just for using a set matte later. Then we have this lightning, and that's literally just a simple lightning effect from like story blocks or something like that, I think. You can take a look at it. Oh wait, I know what this is. This is the lightning reflection here. So that's just taking the actual lightning strike and then directional blurring it a little bit, and that's all there is to it. But where does it I think it's very subtle. I don't think it's really doing that much. Then this is the actual lightning strike. So it's that same comp, just using this mist pass as always to control where it's supposed to appear. Just using a Luma matte. And then we have these two effects above it. Or there's one effect, and let's see. So that just glows up the whole thing. And I wonder why it's not really appearing. I think that might, oh right, I added this effect at the top, the lightning glow. That's just increasing the lumetri color brightness, so it affects more of the scene a little bit. And then we have this. It's a spectacular sky. and that's also from Storyblocks, I believe. It just adds a little bit of clouds and detail using the same background mask thing, making sure it's only appearing behind these. Alright, here we have some rain, and these are not controlled by any Luma mat or anything. These are just a CC rainfall. 3 different variants. They all have different like scales and brightness amounts. But they just add that subtle bit of rain. It's very simple. And I'm adding like these small effects, and looking at them individually, they don't add a lot, but together, it's what the whole scene kind of creates. So we have that. They're just falling different kind of speeds and, you know, adding some variation to the already existing effect because it's very like simple. So then we have all of these guys, and these are the footage overlays, the stock footage. So most of these, I think all of them, or not all of them, but a lot of them, at least the rain, they're from Production Crate. I'm not sponsored by them. Would be pretty cool to be, but just saying this because I think their stuff is pretty great. So yeah, you can just search for rain and they have all these overlays. It's paid for if you want to get them, but I think it's a pretty great resource at least. So just regular screen effect to get rid of the black, and 10% opacity on this one. And these are all just these overlays. I added this lamp rain effect, so if you look at some like actual reference, you can see that the lamps and stuff are gonna have more rain on them. Like, let's see here. There's an example. So it's gonna brighten up the rain around the light. So how I did that was I just took a simple like image of I think it's an IES preset or something. Just render that as PNG and using that as a Luma effect. So it's gonna be a little bit of rain there. And I have yet another one for this one. Then we have even more rain, and this one appears not at the edges because this is very dark, and I realized that it looked weird having a lot of rain on these dark spots. And then this is actually a free effect, I believe. The thick fog atmosphere. It's just like that. See if I can play it. Maybe not. And I believe that's from Premium Beat. Here, Premium Beat. They have a lot of free stuff. Volumetrics. Here. These are great. Oh. Their website is not the greatest, but look at this. Look at all this free stuff they have. It's amazing. So that's another great resource, but search, let's see, volumetric. We'll see if we can find some. They have God rays here. There are a lot of these things that I haven't even downloaded, but they have lens flares too, I think. I think it's called volumetric freebie. The Premium Beat. Okay. These guys. 16 free 4K volumetric light and dust overlays. Yeah, these dust elements, I think they are. Or it's the other thick I don't know. Anyways, look at Premium Beat because they have a lot of these like stock assets. And this one is also masked to only appear like not where it's dark as well, to kind of keep that natural vignette going. And let's see what, I don't believe it. Yeah, 10%. Then this, right? This is the spotlight. No, it's not. This is the spotlight. This is, I think, premium beat as well. Just volumetric ground fog. Then this is the actual spotlight. It's also from premium beat. Just masked it a little bit and kept it very low. And then we have even more rain. None of these are tracked, I believe, except for the light beams here. Alright, so ground splash, I ended up not keeping, so we can delete that. Then we have even more glow. Who could have guessed? And this is 2 deep glow effects to just like matching the actual look. Like it's just looking at reference and seeing like, okay, how is this glow looking, and trying to like match that. And that's basically how it is with like all of these little things. Then we have a big part of this is actually the flares. I liked it a lot. I looked and I saw that they had these like spikes, and I was like, dang it, I missed that. And I went back and added these. These are just optical flares. I have a tutorial on how to do lens flares, so it's just tracking them using the brightness. Then a lens dirt overlay, you can find these by just searching for lens dirt overlay. It's darn simple. Just put that on top, and I have this raindrop comp. So I found on Production Crate a bunch. They had these like raindrop effects or overlays. So I just got a ton of them and put them in one comp, like and duplicated them and like offset them. And it's not wanting to load, so that's fun. But all these pre-comps are just all these. Jesus, there are a lot of them. Yeah, all of these footage, like drips and drops and whatever. And they're actually not that making that much of a difference, but they're there. They're there making the scene a little bit better. See if they can load. Here. No? I'm not even sure if like you noticed them. I don't know, they didn't turn out great. Like, I still haven't found a good like splash ground or like for big surfaces yet. So you kind of have to make them yourself through other comp. It's probably not the greatest way to do it. Okay, these are not wanting to load, and I don't blame it because they're like a billion different compositions. So I'll just keep that there. Okay, then we have this. It's just some lens flare overlays. I think it's premium beats too. And now we're starting to get into the final bits here. So as always, I have a slight edge side blur on the edges here. Let's see if I can show a little before and after. So it's just using a spherical mask and a fast box blur, and you kind of get that anamorphic kind of out of the side of the lenses of anamorphics have these weird artifacts, so that's just something I like to add. And then a Gaussian blur, and yeah, this is the same thing I added to the like using the mist pass, but this is just over the whole image. So just kind of slightly taking and neutralizing everything a little bit. And then this effects layer is just a noise. Very simple noise. I like to not use any advanced add grain effects because they're so slow to use. So just using this noise usually works fine for me at least, and it's more accurate, I feel like, when it comes to digital cameras. Unless you're doing film, and then you probably don't want to use the noise effect. But those are all of the effects, and I'll see if I can unhide them in a way like that. Good. Now they're actually going to join. And I might just talk about the final Oh, interesting. Is it the rain ground mask? Yes. Okay, and that's the final thing. But you can see that big difference is made in the final color. It's called color EXP because it's an experimental one. Before I had all these different variations of color grading. You can see how it looked kind of weird. I had a lot of trouble with figuring out the color grade. I was like, maybe I should just keep it simple and just make a final attempt. And that's where I did the final like grade. So it's this one. So let's talk about that a little bit. So maybe I'll try regrading it just for the fun of it. So volumetric color, as always. And what I did before is I made everything a little too bright, which you don't want to do because it's a night scene. So let's start with some contrast to get that in there. And you always want to kind of think throughout the way, like, does this look photorealistic? And I think this actually kind of does, but it looks very boring as a scene. So we want to bring back some understanding and like, what is this scene? What's going on? So you want to bring up the shadows, I think, but not too much, because this is where it starts getting a little weird. This is where it's not as photorealistic anymore, because you're seeing too much. That's what you like, that wouldn't happen. So 25 should probably be good enough, I think. And we want to take the highlights and bump those up a little bit. Because if you're exposing for the dark, the highlights are going to get even brighter. So you should want to push them up a little bit. Saturation. So saturation is good if you want to find color in something that doesn't have color. And if I put it at 300, you can see how we get all these interesting kind of color palettes going on. But it doesn't look as like realistic. So I'm going to put it at 150, which is still quite a bit. We might change that later down. So that's, I think, our basic. We might bring the exposure up a little bit, just a tad, just a little bit. So we get a little more clarity, kind of diverging a little from the realism to get back the clarity. And I'm going to add a vignette, because vignettes are awesome. And like, it kind of frames the whole image a little more. We'll go into creative, and I usually don't like using LUTs, but for this one, it actually was pretty great. I used this FM Cine Green one. Where did I get that? It's from, I would love to recommend it. It's from this film of a emulsion guy. Like if you search for 16mm film, you could probably like find it or something. I really do want to find it. He has like a lot of good. Is it Sen maybe? I think it could be Sen. S-E-N. Could be wrong. I think it could be that. No, I don't think it is. Maybe it, I don't know. No, he has free grain. Oh, this is grain. Okay. Okay, it was not Sen. Who was it then? Or Ser? Jeez, I'm blind. Maybe it is Fit. Maybe it is him. Yes. Okay, never mind. Here it is. I think it's the Film Vision color grade pack. This one. I'm pretty sure. So it's a bunch of LUTs. Yeah. And they're pretty great for some stuff. So I'm not sure what opacity I kept this at. Depends on how much of the look you want, but you can see how it kind of degrades a little bit and makes everything a little bit darker. So in the color wheels, we might have to adjust for that. But we still don't want to make it too clear. It's a fine line you gotta walk on. And the more time you kind of spend on it, the better it's gonna look. 55 maybe. Not too sure. Let's take a look at this. So this one I actually cranked up the... I think the new one I'm making is actually looking better. Just because... Or it's looking more photorealistic. There's a difference between them. It's less clear though. Like if you show this to someone, they might not actually know what's going on in the scene. Because it's so dark. But I think I cranked up... The exposure is at 1.5. So that was kind of off. I think if I bring that up, it's going to be a lot more like that one. Yeah. But it doesn't look as realistic when you do it. But that's kind of the basic color grading I did. It's not a lot. It's only like one layer, one effect. But it can do a lot of difference if you kind of mold it correctly. So there's no need for massive color grading setups and tons of effects most of the time. Sometimes that might be needed, but for this, it's kind of worked. So yeah, that's kind of a breakdown of this scene. And a lot of people have been asking for it. So hopefully that's gonna give you some insights to how it was created and everything. And ideally, you would probably do this in Nuke instead of After Effects, but I just happened to be using After Effects when starting this shot, so I wasn't expecting a big compositing job. But that's just how it is. It's not like if I try to play this, it's not the greatest experience. It's playing right now, believe it or not. So yeah, it takes a little bit of a while to render this out, but it looks great in the final, I think. I'll play it here. Yeah, I think that might be it. I'm just thinking if there's something else I could maybe could have missed, but yeah, I don't think so. All right. Hopefully you guys learned a thing or two from this. And I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.